Man, if this story is true, this is going to make my day, or even my week, or maybe just possibly even my year. There is a rumor going around that Kotaku might finally be shutting down, and of course not by choice. You see, over the last few years, Kotaku has engaged in non-stop defamation, including the defamation of the YouTuber Smash JT with their recent firing of Alyssa Mercante. But one person is finally taking them to task for the constant defamation he has received, one of the ex-CEOs of Blizzard, who back in 2021, when he was accused of allowing for a men's club workplace, a place that allowed for constant harassment of women and female employees, and was claimed to have done nothing about it. Kotaku at the time released several articles, both then and a few days after and a few weeks after, constantly referring to him as disgraced ex-CEO of Blizzard after he left the company, as well as consistently lying about his plans and goals as he moves away from Blizzard. And so in response to this extreme defamation and these constant lies about his character, Kotic has decided to file an official defamation report against Kotaku to see if he can finally get some comeuppance and make these journalists pay for how they have defamed him in the past. And how there seems to be a culture around journalism right now where most people seem to think they can get away with saying whatever they want. But before I go any further, like, subscribe, and let's get into this. Coming from Smash JT, this lawsuit could actually be the end of Kotaku, God be willing. Former Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick files defamation suit against media outlets over discrimination comments. Bobby Kotick, the former CEO of Activision Blizzard, has filed a defamation lawsuit against Geo Media, specifically targeting its subsidiaries Kotaku and Gizmodo. And no, the irony of this suit going out to the very same outlet that employed a journalist, being Alyssa Mercante, suing me for similar allegations isn't lost on me. Of course, when you're a company that hires the likes of Alyssa Mercante, it's not too surprising that you fill the brim of your media culture with more people like that, because misery breeds more misery. I guarantee you the entire staff at Kotaku, especially around the time period that a lot of these accusations were made, are all filled with people like Alyssa Mercante, and it is wonderful to see that they finally get the comeuppance that they deserve after skating by so long. Of course, the Alyssa Mercante situation is absolutely ridiculous because she wrote a failure of a lawsuit. She's guaranteed to lose purely based on how her pro bono lawyer decided to handle the case. Now, this case specifically is being filed in the Superior Court of Delaware and alleges that both outlets deliberately misrepresented Kotic by referencing withdrawn allegations of discrimination and workplace harassment in the coverage of his rumored interest in acquiring TikTok. And of course, who could be surprised at the idea that Kotaku would be spreading lies or intentionally putting in false information seeded into the headlines of their articles to make people look bad when they don't like what they're doing. Kotic then alleges that these articles were penned with the malicious purpose of causing further harm to his reputation, despite these very allegations that have already been dismissed. And then Smash JT draws us back to that situation a couple of months ago, where that one poor boy who is a Chiefs fan got accosted for being in blackface, when in reality half his face was black and the other half of the face was red. He was wearing a headscarf. And of course, a Geo Media owned site, being Deadspin, went after and attacked this poor boy, claiming that he was being a racist. So of course, his family took them to court and they won, and Deadspin was sold off after being shut down for a short period of time. So most likely, assuming that this defamation case goes in a similar direction as that Chiefs one went, it's entirely likely that Geo Media will be forced to shut down or sell both Gizmodo and Kotaku. And wouldn't that be just the best treat? So what exactly is Kotic suing for, though? It's that his complaint is that complaints that the disputed articles had absolutely nothing to do with Activision Blizzard. Instead, they were just reports about speculation that Kotic was part of a group looking to purchase TikTok in the United States. However, despite the fact that it was all about buying TikTok, Kotaku and Gizmodo allegedly went out of their way to reference the withdrawn discrimination allegations, which Kotic claims were conclusively disproven by numerous investigations. And according to Kotic's claim, these two sites decided to, despite the fact that these accusations were thrown out, left them in the paper to further smear his character. And he asserts that these references were entirely unnecessary and defamatory, and that Geo Media knowingly propagated falsehoods further. The lawsuit points out that despite multiple requests from Kotic and his representatives to correct the record, Kotaku and Gizmodo only made a partial amendments. With this tweet showing one of the articles that was put out from Gizmodo, Bobby Kotick, disgraced former CEO of Activision Blizzard, reportedly wants to buy TikTok. And of course, as addressed, all of that is false. It should be allegedly disgraced because the accusations were thrown out and there was no evidence that he actually did engage in this kind of culture, and that he himself wasn't the one who wanted to buy TikTok. He was merely a part of an organization who did. And while Gizmodo did remove the word disgrace from its original headline, the headline that is on X still has the word disgrace in it, and both outlets later eventually updated their articles with details of the case's resolution. Kotic argued that the articles continue to mischaracterize the situation regardless of these amendments. And as Smashy puts it, while I hate that Kotaku's putting me in a position to defend Kotic here, I gotta be honest. Seeing how the outlet had employees have treated me over the years, I can't help but relate to his frustration. Background: Activision Blizzard's legal troubles and settlements. So this all boils down to the fact that back in 2021, Activision Blizzard came under intense scrutiny when the California Civil Rights Department, CRD, launched an investigation into potential workplace sexual harassment and discrimination. And I remember when this happened because this is what killed Overwatch. This is what led to Overwatch as a game becoming absolutely unbearable and unplayable. And it all started when they changed McCree's name. Because the person who McCree is named after, I forget his first name, but his last name is McCree, was designated as one of the head people who were responsible for these allegations. And so, without any actual trial or evidence or proof, they changed the character's name. I don't even know the new name, because it was a stupid name. And the fact that Blizzard was ultimately found not guilty despite having to pay out a significantly large chunk of money makes this even more insane to me. Because it really does cement this as an activist coup instead of something actually substantiated in actual accusations. And of course, as what happens when you have accusations, it really snowballed and led to multiple legal actions, including a lawsuit filed by the CRD. However, in December 2023, Activision Blizzard and the CRD reached a settlement of $54 million, with the agreement explicitly stating that no court or any independent investigation has substantiated any allegations of systemic sexual harassment, nor that the company's senior executives ignored, condoned, or tolerated such behavior. Now, the fact that they put out a settlement means that maybe there was something there, and being that it's a Californian governmental agency, they might have been more interested in the money than actually sticking to the truth. And while I totally believe that could have been the case, it is also entirely possible that this was just so that they could get the suit dropped because there was no allegations. Because there was no proof. And despite these legal conclusions, Kotic alleges that Geo Media intentionally omitted key facts, opting then instead to repeat discredited claims in an effort to further damage his reputation. Because nothing sells clicks like an attack on someone's character, and when you think you have a slam dunk on someone being a terrible person, why wouldn't you dive full force and take it? And what seems to be a trend from how journalists treat these people, game studios, YouTubers, and just about everyone else in between that they don't like, it almost feels like many of these outlets felt invincible and used the power of press as a shield from any scrutiny. Now, a month before Kotic filed the lawsuit, he addressed the Activision Blizzard legal battles on a podcast hosted by venture capital firm Kleiner Perkins. In it, he dismissed the multiple lawsuits against the company as fake lawsuits, and went as far as to claim that a 2021 employee petition demanding his resignation, which amassed over 1,800 signatures, was also fake. Kotic then suggested that the Communication Workers of America, CWA union, was behind much of the legal trouble faced by Activision Blizzard, among others like Tesla and SpaceX. He accused the union of orchestrating a coordinated smear campaign against the company and by enlisting the government to file lawsuits as part of a broader effort to push for unionization. And this is something we have seen where these union groups will stage a coup within companies through various and all malicious means to try and shut down a company because they don't like the fact that they haven't formed a strong enough union. Even though we know that while some unions are very beneficial, like some manufacturing unions, most unions are a waste of time, space, and effort and makes everyone's life more miserable, except for the HR managers who get hired to support it. And then, of course, because they're boring, the CWA denied these claims in a statement to gaming news outlet Rock Paper Shotgun and made sure to go the extra step and remind the public that Kotic himself had previously apologized for workplace misconduct under his leadership following the $18 million settlements with an Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. The specific statement was, in 2021, Activision agreed to an $18 million settlement with the EEOC following a lawsuit that Activision had sexually harassed and discriminated against its workforce. Bobby Kotick himself apologized in his own press release for the inappropriate conduct that had happened under his watch. Small issue though, CWA, an apology is not an admission of guilt. They are not the same thing. People can apologize for something and not be guilty. It happens all the time. Otherwise, a lot more doctors would be given misconduct charges. Apologies serve so many social functions, including an expression of empathy, that the US courts do not accept them as an admission of guilt, and therefore your point here is moot. And of course, the first people to jump at Kotic for statements made on that podcast were, of course, the ABK workers, or more specifically, Activision Blizzard employees, who publicly refuted his assertion on social media. As they tweeted out, the trauma, discrimination, and abuse that our coworkers and former coworkers endured is not fake or a plan to drive union membership. Our unions were both born from the very real and harmful way to executives reacted when made aware of these situations. Yeah, so I'm going to trust the Workers' Alliance, which is just a layman's union, to tell the truth about a situation where they benefited from it. You see, a lot of the people involved in Blizzard were not there in 2021 and never faced any kind of harassment. This was all a political coup, as I mentioned before. It was a coup to enforce a far more liberally leaning culture within Blizzard and shut down many more of the more reasonable things happening. Hence why, after Kotick was fired, Overwatch adopted their excruciatingly strict DEI mandated character generation, where they had to fill out a checkbox of various DEI related traits before a character could be confirmed. So I don't believe for a second that a huge portion of this wasn't politically motivated. They then went on to further criticize Kotick for attempting to shift the narrative, arguing that his stance exemplifies how corporations often try to paint unions as external adversaries rather than acknowledging that they are composed of employees seeking workplace improvements. Well, usually they are adversarial. And many of these employees demanding better workplace environments, too, are oftentimes very adversarial and demanding things that are complete and utterly fallacious and unnecessary. But now that the lawsuit has been filed, Kotick is seeking damages to be determined at trial. If successful, the case could set a precedent regarding media accountability. It's kind of sad that we need to set a precedent for this, when this should have already been the precedent. Defamation is a crime, and it should strip you of your right to write any journalistic articles in general, because, as I mentioned, it is a horrendous crime that can destroy people's lives. Particularly in cases where past allegations, regardless of the resolution, are continuously resurfaced in unrelated reporting. Basically a form of using past things to justify modern attacks. And most importantly, the outcome could also impact the way gaming journalism and tech media handle sensitive legal issues tied to high-profile industry figures. Meanwhile, at this time, representatives from both Kotic and Geo Media have remained largely silent, with no official comments released as of yet. Whether this lawsuit here from Kotic will lead to a broader reckoning for media accountability remains to be seen. And a great article as always from Smash JT, but I really do hope that Kotick wins this suit and really just goes and hammers into Geo Media and these other media sites just how much they're skirting around legal issues, how badly they're constantly screwing the pooch, and how frequently they are impinging on people's personal rights. They've gotten away with defamation and far worse crimes time in and time out again, and it's about time that these people realize that they don't have journalistic immunity. Because the amount of lives ruined and the amount of lives lost because of the coverage from gaming journalist sites is getting out of hand and is utterly ridiculous and needs to be reeled in, and somebody needs to be held accountable. Thanks for watching. That's pretty much what I've got, so I will see you guys on the next one.